Hello, and welcome to this week's CML Statehouse Report. I'm Megan Dollar, Legislative Advocacy Manager, and thank you so much for joining us this week. This is more than likely our second to last Statehouse report, but if anything changes, certainly feel free to reach out to the lobbyists. We're always happy to answer any questions and want to make sure everyone is up to date on what the legislature is doing. With that in mind, let me go ahead and get started with my bills. The first ones I'm going to talk about are in the realm of law enforcement and criminal justice. The first one is House Bill 1250. This is the bill that is a kind of sequel to Senate Bill 217 from last year. It has to do with police accountability. There are a number of provisions in the bill that CML has been working on, particularly around definition of contacts when it comes to data collection, when the body camera provisions of 217 go into effect and what that looks like. As well as some other provisions. And we have been working on that and hopefully can have found a reasonable solution. One thing that I do want to note last week is that an amendment was added to it that removes language that was agreed to back in 2019, I believe it was, around releasing internal affairs documents. So what the legislation said back in 2019 is that an individual had to have a specific and identifiable incident in order to request an internal affairs file. The amendment that was adopted on 1250 was actually strikes the term specific and identifiable and just says an incident. We're still identifying the real impacts of it, and I think it will certainly vary across the state, but I expect that to be something that, should it remain in the bill, that'll definitely be something that'll be revisited next year. The next bill I want to talk about as far as criminal justice and law enforcement is Senate Bill 273. This is the new version of Senate Bill 62, rather than calling it jail depopulation or jail population management tools. This version is called pretrial reform. The bill is a little bit different than 62 in that it does remove all felonies and so allows for arrestable offenses in all felonies. There are some caveats and some exemptions from the misdemeanor section. If it is a mandatory arrestable offense, it is arrestable. And then there's some victims' rights crimes that are also exempted as well. One thing to note, as the bill has moved through the process in the Senate, initially as introduced, it allowed for two fail to appears before an individual could be held on monetary bond. That bill was amended in the Finance Committee to actually only allow for one fail to appear. And so that is certainly notable. Law enforcement is still very opposed to the bill and fundamentally disagrees with the premise of it. And so CML has yet to remove our opposition. The bill is now over in the House and will be heard in the House Finance Committee this week. The next bill I want to talk about is Senate Bill 176. This has to do with protecting Protecting Opportunity and Workers' Rights Act, also known as the Power Act. This revolves around sexual harassment and other types of harassment. The bill as written, although it has been amended quite a bit, CML is still opposed to it. It still includes independent contractors when talking about employees in the applications of the Anti-Discrimination Act. We also have some concerns with the references to the hostile work environment definition in the legislation right now. We have some issues around caregiver status and a number of other pieces. So we continue to oppose that legislation. Finally, I want to talk about Senate Bill 174, also in the law enforcement realm. This is one that CML is actually supporting. This has to do with police disclosures or police credibility disclosures. What the bill does is it creates a committee that will identify a statewide policy that will need to be adopted by law enforcement agencies that establishes a standardized way of releasing police credibility disclosures to district attorneys and what that needs to look like. This is something that no state in the country has actually accomplished. So should the bill pass and should we develop a policy, that will be a huge step forward for the state of Colorado. That bill is going to be up. It's in the second house right now. It's in the House of Representatives, and it will be up on seconds this week. With that, I'll go ahead and kick it over to the next lobbyist. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Heather Stauffer. Today, I'm going to be talking about 3 bills. The first bill I want to talk about is House Bill 1105, low-income utility payment assistant contributions. CML submitted testimony in support of House Bill 1105. The bill passed the State Senate Finance Committee with a vote of 4-3. CML then lobbied on the floor, and that passed on Senate second reading today. So the second bill I want to talk about is Senate Bill 88. This is the Child Sexual Abuse Accountability Act. CML testified in an amend position on this bill. The bill was laid over in the House Judiciary Committee to allow the sponsors time to work on amendments. CML is working with the sponsors and the proponents of this bill to amend to include the Colorado Governmental Immunity Act damage caps that were previously in the bill but were stripped out in the Senate. The last bill I want to talk about is Senate Bill 281, the State Severance Tax Trust Fund allocations. CML lobbied in support of this bill, and it passed out of Senate second reading with an amendment CML asked for. So part of the bill requires the heads of the various state agencies to review and make recommendations for policies around severance tax. And this amendment that we asked for would require local governments to be included as stakeholders in that process. So that was amended onto the bill in the Senate second reading, and that passed. So that's all I have for this week. I hope you have a great week. Thank you.
Hi everybody, Bill Clarion here, and today I will provide you all with updates on 4 bills. The first one is House Bill 1301 concerning cannabis outdoor cultivation measures. This past week, CML monitored this bill as it went through the House to ensure that the CML initiated amendment that allows increased local authority regarding regulating adverse weather plans stayed on. This amendment did stay on, and the bill is now going through the Senate. CML is still neutral on this bill. The next bill I want to update you all on is House Bill 1314, which will limit the municipal use of outstanding judgments and warrants. This past week, as the bill was in second reading, CML worked with the sponsors on a bipartisan amendment that adds a study to the bill to examine alternative municipal enforcement mechanisms related to traffic violations. This study group will have representation from CML, municipal judges, and other individuals involved in the process to make sure that the local jurisdictions have enforcement mechanisms in hand. With this amendment, CML is formally opposed to this bill. The next bill I will discuss is Senate Bill 31, which concerns governmental responses to protests. Last week, CML testified in support of a strike bill amendment on this bill that turns the bill into a study. However, this bill was ultimately postponed indefinitely by the sponsor in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Lastly, I want to let you all know that Senate Bill 148, which creates the Financial Empowerment Office, has passed both chambers and is on its way to the governor's desk. And that concludes my updates for this week. Please let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan McKillop, a legislative and policy advocate with CML. Here are some things I'm working on at the Statehouse. The legislative session is getting ready to wind down, and there are just a few loose ends for the General Assembly to tie up. One of those loose ends is House Bill 1162, the management of plastic products. The bill, as amended by the Senate State Veteran and Military Affairs Committee, creates a statewide ban on plastic bags and styrofoam takeout containers starting in 2024. The bill also mandates that customers pay a 10-cent fee on all reusable bags beginning in 2024. The State Affairs Committee also amended the bill to include a repeal of the preemption of local government's ability to manage plastic products, which is huge. CML is so grateful to Senator Julie Gonzalez and Senate President Leroy Garcia for restoring this language to the bill and for their continued commitment to local control on this issue. I also want to thank all of the local government leaders, including mayors and city council members from across the state, for vocalizing their support of this language. The bill will be debated by the full Senate this week, rescheduled from last week, and will be sent to the House for final approval. Next, I want to talk about Senate Bill 261. Last week, CML testified in support of the bill in the House Energy and Environment Committee. This bill removes most of the existing limitations on the size of distributed generation facilities. Current law limits the size of a renewable energy system allowed on a customer's premise to no more than 120% of the total customer energy usage of the building. This bill would remove that requirement entirely, allowing customers to qualify for renewable energy credits if they install renewable energy system. And it would also make it easier to have things like electric vehicles on your property. The bill also expands an existing exemption in order to allow people to more easily share energy that's generated on their property between buildings. This would benefit owners of multi-tenant properties and encourage those owners to use renewable energy. The bill has a pit stop in appropriations, and then we'll head to the full House for a debate. Last, but certainly not least, the House of Representatives had the initial vote on Senate Bill 260, Sustainability of the Transportation Funding System. As you know, this bill proposes a package of fees, dedicated general fund dollars, and stimulus funds to help address transportation infrastructure all over the state. The House passed several amendments to the bill during their debate on second reading, most of which were technical in nature. The House will take their final vote on the bill this week, and then it will head back to the Senate for final approval. That's all for me. Please reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me and have a great week. Bye.